Anthony Davis went crazy. The Nuggets rested their entire starting five, and guess what? The Washington Wizards got a win. We're going to recap all of Wednesday's action from a fantasy basketball point of view. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and 1,000 troops of Coopers couldn't keep me from you. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check out LockedOnDaily.com. You can find the best newsletter for your favorite team over there. Go sign up. All the everydayers were banging in over there. You double banging. You listen to the audio, listen to the video. We're going to talk about all the games on Wednesday. There were 9 of them. We'll get into a little bit of news as well. We might as well just start things off with the news. It is, of course, today, in case you're unaware, American Circus Day. So, for any circuses that are in America, now's the time. Whether you're a big Ringling Brothers guy, is that an American thing? I don't know. Anyway, it's circus time over in America, apparently. So, we are here to talk about news across the sports world. First of all, the big news, of course, is Jackson Merrill. Extension. 9 years. The GOAT is back. The Padres are cooking. We're winning every game. We're never losing again. Jackson Merrill's locked in. It's all happening. Oh my God. What a time. Let's actually talk NBA news now. We got an update on Lauri Markkanen, and basically it was a way of saying, I'm not going to tell you that he's out for the season, but he's 100% not playing, guys, so don't worry about it. So him and John Collins are not playing again this season. We couldn't be more certain. Like, what is there, 9 days left in the year? And they go, yeah, he'll be reevaluated in 8. Like, that's sick, bro. Thanks, man. That's really helpful. Very, very useful. They didn't say 9. You know what I mean. They're done. Bye-bye. See you later, Lauri Markkanen and John Collins. We've also got an update in Minnesota. Not through a basketball on-court or fantasy perspective, but the sale that went through. Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lauri are going to be approved to take over from Glenn Taylor, one of the worst owners in sports. So, not whether it does anything for fantasy right now, because it doesn't. It removes a level of uncertainty around that team, which I don't know whether that plays on the players. It probably doesn't, but it's more just about their ability to build moving forward and not have literally one of the worst owners in sports running things. We also got an update in Brooklyn with Noah Clowney out for the season. He was one of those guys that I liked as a late round flyer. I thought that this team would be rebuilding and they'd like to see what they could get out of him. They did not do that. He also was really disappointing, and that was a bad late round investment. We'll talk more about him when we do the Nets season review and all that season review stuff later in the year. But Clowney is done for the year. But that just opens stuff up when Cam Johnson is out for other players like Trendon Watford. Ziaire Williams would be, but he's also currently out for their next game. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening over there. Shall we talk waiver wire trends, who's been added and who's been dropped, and how we can make sense of that stuff? We probably should. The most added player. He added Peyton Watson. You got a really good game out of him on Monday. Maybe not so good on Tuesday, considering he did not play. Well, you didn't get a really good game. You got a good amount of blocks, and you got a good amount of minutes, and you'd hope you got the back-to-back, but no, he didn't play. The next most added player is Ryan Rollins, who I do think is a pretty solid option. It is going to be hit or miss in terms of what his shooting numbers and shooting percentages, but you're going to get pretty good on-court time. Dennis Schroder, one of the most added players. Cade's still out, so that's totally cool with me. Jamal Shed with Emmanuel quickly ruled out again tomorrow. I wish we could just get 25 plus every night of Shed. But if you get 28 and then 22, it's probably worth holding. Zach Ricochet, people love chasing a big shooting performance, which is what Ricochet does, and it is hard to ignore, I understand that. But we have been kicked in the head so many times by bad follow-ups that it's hard to get excited about it. And the other one there is Dan Gafford, who returned and put up good numbers, and of course Derek Lively returned today and immediately started in front of him. So we'll assess the Mavericks and their centers and that later on in the show. Let's talk about the most dropped players. I think we're going to agree on most of these. Scottie Pippen Jr. with Ja Morant back. Easy drop. Mr. Black is a drop with Cole Anthony back. Fan of Pounds Kevin Huerter. I don't know about that one. I understand why people did it because he missed the Monday game. But I am not a Kevin Huerter guy. I do not like going in to say, yeah, man, Kevin Huerter is going to be rostered. But I think he does. So, yeah, I'd try to reverse that one. The next ones all make a ton of sense. Kai Jones, easy drop. Justin Edwards, he's reverted back because he's Justin Edwards. And this is what happens when these sort of players usually go on real hot streaks based on some stuff that's not really sustainable. He's fallen away. I don't mind a hold of him. I probably wouldn't do it, but I don't hate it. And then Jackson Hayes is a stream on the days that Rui Hachimura's out, because then he can push to 27 minutes. Otherwise, he's like a 20-minute starting center, which very clearly it's not going to be enough for us. So should we just get into talking about the first game of the day? We should. It is the Sacramento Kings losing. These losers lost again in their losing ways against the Washington Wizards, 116-111. That is 7 out of the last 8 games they have lost against the team that absolutely does not want to win. That's how embarrassing it is for Sacramento at the moment. I don't know why this is so, I don't know if obvious is the right word, but we see these situations where a team unexpectedly pushes, jumps up into the standings like they did with that 3 seed. They love the smell of their own farts way too much. Because yeah, we're here, man. We are here. We know what we're doing. We are doing what we need to do. We're going to get so much internal improvement. And then they don't actually make the correct moves. They just make these. Either they don't make a move, or they make the move that makes the least sense with their team. That has happened. The Pelicans and Anthony Davis. Remember when they brought in Amir Ashik to be the guy next to him? Like, bro, what are you doing? I think the Hawks did that a little bit as well. When they made the DeJounte Murray trade after their little lucky conference finals run, the Blazers tried to do that as well. And now the Kings have done it. And they've been shocking ever since. And that's not really a surprise, because they don't really evaluate where they are or why they got to where they were in that first place. And yeah, anyway, I'm talking too much about that stuff. Let's talk about what they actually did on the court. Keon Ellis started again. 2 points. He did have 3 steals, but he played 22 minutes, and Malik Monk got 35 off the bench. So they're leaning back into that same starting group again. If you want to drop Malik Monk, like, go for it. Why would you not Malik Monk? Well, why would you want to hold Keon Ellis is what I'm trying to say, because like, he's not very good. He has the occasional solid game. He's ranking numbers. You're going to look at Yahoo's total ranks at the end of the season. He's going to come up as like the 60th best player, and it's going to be one of the biggest lies of all time. But because he gets these steal numbers and no turnovers, and it makes him look like he's a good fantasy player, and he isn't. While he was starting and playing 30 minutes, you're interested in it. But games like this, man, we just treat him as a steals streamer. You don't need to hold. As for Monk, this is not a great game, but the minutes distribution is obviously a lot more encouraging than what had been happening in those other games off the bench. Sabonis got the 7 assists back, so that's a W for him after getting 0 in the last one. And Keegan Murray, I've been critical of Keegan Murray and his fantasy output for a while. Over the last month or so, he's been much better. He's been in that area that people have wanted him to be in all season, that 70 to 80 zone, which is not where he's been, but he is now. And that's an improvement. DeMar DeRozan, look, why can this guy just have these random games or stretches where he doesn't hit free throws? He was, 8 of 12 here? 9 of 12? That's terrible for him, like on that volume, and then 44 from the field. Well, Valanciunas, a bit of a cameo for him, 12 and 6 in his 13 minutes. Do not add Jonas Valanciunas. Don't do that. And Zach LaVine continues to just do nothing. His team they just feel checked out. 16, 2 and 2 for LaVine. They just look wrong. Everything is off. So yeah, I wouldn't drop LaVine, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but I wouldn't drop LaVine. It's just things aren't looking good. The Wizards, this team, they want to lose. What are they doing? They keep randomly winning games that they don't want to win. They are now 1.5 games ahead of Utah, in that they're almost as close to Charlotte in 3 as they are to Utah in 1. They're 2 games ahead of Charlotte and 1.5 behind Utah, which is not where they want to be. But I guess it's good for some of these guys to put up good numbers. And Alex Sarr continues to show some improvement. He only played 26 minutes. He didn't play much in the fourth. 15 and 4 with 3 threes, but he hit his shots, which he doesn't normally do. And what we're also getting is much better Bubba Carrington games. Now, it does take point guards a long time to figure it out, and it's taken him a long time. But maybe we're here. I don't know that for sure, obviously. Why would I know that for sure? But he had 19, 2 and 7 with 5 threes. That's pretty strong. And the other guy, we love to track minutes. We love to, if you're in doubt and you're trying to figure it out, just go minutes. And AJ Johnson's played 1 million minutes. The last 2 games, bad. This game, 19, 2 and 6, 2 threes, 50%. Oh, hello. If he plays 36 minutes a night, AJ Johnson, we're in as a 12-team guy. He's featuring heavily on all of my streaming shows, and I believe you can keep doing that. We only got 24 minutes from Jordan Poole, but he had 23 points. After a little swoon, he's starting to put up numbers again, even though they're pulling his minutes back. Champagny got 30 minutes with 8 points and 11 rebounds, but what was interesting was no Middleton, obviously, no Keyshawn George, and then guys who had been playing minutes like Colby Jones and then Jalen Martin, who's only got 2 games left on his 2-way, they just said, you're not playing. So that opened things up for 31 minutes of Anthony Gill and 26 minutes of JT Thor, the God of Hammers, who didn't do very much. Rashawn Holmes only played 2 minutes with a shoulder issue, so Tristan Vukcevic played 22 minutes again. He plays 22 every night. And we didn't actually get vucked. We had 17 and 8 with 2 threes and a block. We could have, because Holmes came in early, and I think Holmes will be out tomorrow. So your Vukcevic stream looks all right. It looks pretty good. Justin benefited from the Jones and Martin absences. I wonder if they actually do bring Sadiq Bey back for any games. I don't think they will. But Champagny had 8 and 11, 2 steals and a block. He is fringy. Amazingly, I think we might actually look at Carrington and AJ Johnson as better fantasy plays at this point somehow. We have got 8 more games to talk about, including the outcome of Anthony Davis back in Dallas and those all those centers and how that played out. We're going to talk about all other 8 games. First of all, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on all that action like never before. You can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. If you're a new customer, of course, and when you win that first $5 bet, you've got those $200 in bonus bets to spend on the tournament or other sports, honestly. You might want to look at the underdogs. You might want to be backing who's going to win the Final Four, who's going to be the last team standing in March Madness. You can do all that on FanDuel, and you can do it with your bonus bets as well, plus any other sport that's there. And when you do win, the payouts are instant. So go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let's go to the next game. We're talking the Charlotte Hornets and the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers win at 119-105 is the final score there. The Hornets are able to go into this one with the same lineup that they've been rolling out there the last few games. Of course, that's without LaMelo Ball, but let's talk about the replacement of LaMelo Ball. An interesting name in fantasy. No, he's not scoring very well, 9 points on 40%, KJ Simpson, but 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and a block. He's not a must, but there's enough there to consider as a 12-team league guy. Miles Bridges only played 24 minutes as they sort of ease off a little bit there. 18, 4, and 5, the numbers are still good. It's also a really good game from Seth Curry. 30 minutes of Seth Curry, imagine that. Curry is now starting to be at least streamable for threes if he's going to play. 16 and 4 with 2 threes, while Mark Williams, 32 minutes, 16 and 12. Didn't really have that on your bingo card, did you, that Mark Williams would be playing all the way down the stretch? I know I didn't. Tijan Salan, who'd been playing better, was not quite as good in this one, but 7, 5, and 2. If we get a notification that he is going to start some games, I'd be marginally interested. What did happen, though, is Josh Green left this game early. I reckon he might be done. But what happened was they started Yusuf Nurkic in his place, and they went Nurkic and Williams together. Okay, that's interesting. Very weird. Nurk had 13 and 5, and if we got 26 minutes of Nurk because he's either replacing Williams or starting next to him, we're in. We are adding Nurk in that spot. I don't think I'd rush to do it right now, but we obviously need to just watch that one. And then Damian Boer suffered what looked like a pretty significant injury. He was back and playing. He'd had 17 minutes for 2 points, which is terrible on 11%. But that injury didn't look great. He never returned. I don't have an update on that yet, but we have to just obviously keep an eye on it and hope that he is okay. Let's talk about the Indiana side of the game. We got Miles Turner returning in this one. He only played the 29 minutes, 15 and 9 with 2 blocks, whatever. Halliburton, another double-double with 2 steals and 2 blocks and 4 threes. Another guy that was incredibly disappointing at parts this season, but has been unbelievable from February, March, and into April now. Neesmith, only 26 minutes, but was very strong once more with Mathurin out. It is a relatively easy equation here. Mathurin's out, you feel better about Nembhard, you feel better about Neesmith. Nembhard, though, didn't do anything, 9 and 2 with 2 steals. And at this point, I'm going to prefer to use Neesmith over Nembhard unless it's Halliburton that's out. Siakam's mid-run continues. What is happening with this guy? 15 and 6 with 2 steals on bad field goals and bad free throws. Over the last 5 games, he's outside the top 200. Like, bro, what is going on here? You don't drop him, but I'd like something. I'd like you to be better. We got 22 minutes from Jarris Walker. Hello. He had 10, 6, and 2 with 3 threes. That's cool and all, but what does it mean? Nothing. Same with Tom Bryant's 13 points, nothing. They had the game pretty easily in hand. What is interesting is that Siakam sucks and that Neesmith is playing well at this point in time. We'll go on to the next game, the third of the early games. It is the New York Knickerbockers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs handle it 124-105. Towns was back in this game. He looked a bit better than those previous games. He shot well. He had 25 and 13. Well, Wizard legend OG Anunoby, I know he's a Jedi, so he's just like, why is he good now? No, let me rephrase it. He's always been good. Why is he a dominating offensive player now? 23, 6 and 6 with 5 threes. I I've always liked this guy as a player. I remember one of my hot takes early in my career doing this was like, I think OG is going to be a better player than Pascal Siakam. Didn't really work out that way. Although, right now, he is. And I don't really know where this offense has come from. He is a top 15 player over the last 2 weeks. He's doing it not through outrageous defensive numbers. He just is an unbelievable offensive player now. I don't understand it. But it's happening. Cool. Bridges had 8 points. He took only 6 shots. That's yuck. What we also got from DeLon Wright, who continues to be usable when 3-point guards are out. Now, that's obviously a hard area to lock in rest of season, even the next 9 days. But while they're out, like, what do we get? 7 points only, but 6 assists and a steal. DeLon usually does more in the defensive stats as well. We use him while Payne, McBride, and Brunson are out. But honestly, all 3 of those guys could come back at the same time. Brunson looks like he's not far away. McBride and Payne could be back at any point. There was no Mitchie Robinson. That's why we got more minutes from the big sneeze, Precious Achiuwa. He had 13 and 6 with 2 blocks. You can just go ahead and ignore that. While it was good to get a better Josh Hart game, a very good Josh Hart game. In fact, 19, 5, and 4, 2 steals. What about on to the Cavs side of this game? We know that they were without the milkman himself, Ty Jerome. There was no Dean Wade in this one also. Don Mitchell actually shot over 50%, so good for him. He had 3 blocks to go with 27, 6, and 5. Allen was great again on 91% shooting. Garland he's sort of fallen off from that early run in the season, but it's still very good numbers. And then Evan Mobley started slow, but ended up with a serviceable enough line without being good. What we need to do, though, is check on the guys that should have been dropped 10 years ago. So what about Max Strus, who had 8, 5, and 2? Oh, yeah.
Get that garbage out of here.
What about DeAndre Hunter? It looks good when you start off, 16 points.
Get that garbage out of here.
But of course, he had 2 rebounds and 0 assists and 1 steal and didn't have a block, and they just do not belong on 12-team rosters outside of single-day streaming. That is it. You don't do it for any other reason. You just don't. The Knicks got cooked so much in this game that we actually got to see 2 minutes of Luke Travers. That's how much of a blowout this game turned into. There's not a lot of fantasy takeaways in that game. We should go on to the next one now because the Miami Heat pulled off the victory over the Boston Celtics, 124-103. The Heat rolled out with their same starting lineup. I think the Celtics are going to be going pretty easy down the stretch here. I said this about the Celtics. I said it about the Thunder. I said about the Cavs. They didn't do it today. They didn't rest a starter, but there was 2 of their rotation guys out. You are not going to get a full complement game from these teams, I don't think, rest of season. So in this one, the Heat, obviously, they had no Wiggins. They had no Duncan Robinson either, no Jovic. What we got was that same starting group, but one of the guys who's not starting is probably the most interesting, and that is Davion Mitchell. 13 points with 3 threes, 7 assists and 3 steals. I just think we grab him. Like, if he's playing 33 a night now, you can't really trust Spoelstra, but he's doing well enough at the moment. We also got 24 Kyle Anderson minutes. Now, it is a fluky, obviously. He had 19 points with a lot of ones in the box score, but that's interesting enough with those players out to at least consider. We got big minutes from Superman, Khalil Ware. The numbers are shocking, though. 7 and 5, stealing a block. Played 32 minutes, while Alec Burks had 10 points in the start, but he's not really playing starters minutes because the starter is realistically Davion Mitchell. The other guy that is in there and getting big minutes and playing over Jaime Jaquez and over Terry Rozier is second-round pick legend Pala Larson. Larson had 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He just looks like capable. I think that he is a very strong stream while the Wiggins absence and Jovic absence is here. But I don't know, man. He just looks good. Like, he looks good. He looks like the role for him, he fits the role. Maybe that's the better way of phrasing it. It's not really a must roster sort of a scenario, but he's at least in that stream mix ahead of Highsmith, who had 10 and 4 with 2 threes, and ahead of Jaquez and ahead of Terry Rozier. By the way, Isaiah Stevens and Josh Christopher played 2 minutes while Rozier played 0. So, yeah, things are going pretty well for Terry at the moment. Should we talk about the Celtics side of it? They were without, again, not a surprise, no Porzingis, no Horford, no Drew Holiday. So that meant that Luke Cornett started and was good. When Cornett gets a start, he's always going to be interesting to use. He had 14 and 6 in 21 minutes. Jaylen Brown also still can't get to 30 minutes. His knee is still causing a problem. He will miss more games rest of season, I am certain. He had 24, 9, and 4 there, while Tatum had just 16, 3, and 7. Pritchard was fine. Played 31 minutes. Peyton, 10 and 4, 2 threes. I don't think you need to roster him. You can. You absolutely can. But like I've said a million times on this show, if you look at your roster and Peyton Pritchard's on it, or I looked at your waiver wire and Peyton Pritchard's on it, I'd go, all right. Does it need to be there? Could he move? I wouldn't be like, man, you are absolutely ridiculous. How could you possibly have Pritchard on your roster, or how could you possibly have him on your wire? I think he just sits in the middle of that. Schrodinger's Pritchard. He's either rosterable or non-rosterable at the time, and you never know. Because he's mid. That's what he is. Not much else going on here. We've got a little bit of extra playing time for Shireman. While Hauser started, he had 25 minutes, but didn't really do much in that role, which, again, is relatively commonplace for someone of the level of Slammin' Sammy Hauser. We've got more games to talk about, including Utah's monster beatdown and a huge game from Isaiah Collier on the other side of that. We'll come back and talk about that in a sec. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Yeah, it is. We all know that daylight savings is here now, but it may have snuck up on you. And when it sneaks up on you, it's dastardly old daylight savings. It steals that hour of sleep. 5 Hour Energy has got your back. It is there to give you that extra boost to take advantage of all the extra sunshine you've got now. More time for fun, but giving that little boost, little bit of a shove along is what 5 Hour Energy does. You can stay up late to watch West Coast basketball games if you're on the East Coast. You can stay up to watch international ping pong tournaments. Whatever it is you want to do, 5 Hour Energy is going to be there with different flavors like Tropical Burst available to you. Plus, they're just around. You know what a 5 Hour Energy is. It's there. It's available for you. And you can also go to 5hourenergy.com, and there are over 15 flavors for you to choose from, building your own 12 or 24 pack and get delivered right to your door. And if you need it right now, just go to a convenience store or a grocery store. They're there everywhere. Stock up and stay energized. Yeah, do it. Okay, we can go back in now and start looking at the next batch of these games. What is the next one that we're up to? Oh, yeah, it's this one. It is the Utah Jazz. I just told you it was going to be the Utah Jazz game, and it is the Utah Jazz against the Rockets. The Rockets 143, the Jazz 105. We are sort of settling in now, which is always better to know for fantasy, in what the Jazz lineups are going to be. That's always a better spot to be in to have an understanding of what, even if it's bad, but just a level of, I guess, more of a level of confidence in what the lineup is going to look like, or what the rotations are going to look like on an everyday basis. And that's, I think, where we're at with Utah at the moment. They brought Walker Kessler back, and KJ Martin was out. They brought Colin Sexton back, and Johnny Juzang went to the bench. And there's going to be some games, I'm guessing, where that'll happen again, and those players will sit. But overall, the value in Utah is going to be concentrated into a few guys. Like Sexton played just 24 minutes. He had 18 points and 4 assists. He's going to jack up a million shots, but he's not going to play much. He's useful, but is he useful enough to hold, given limited minutes, a non-robust fantasy game plus games off? I don't think so. Isaiah Collier was great. 22 points, 32 minutes, 10 assists and a block. Very, very good from him. He is okay to use for certain spots. He is a little risky, but as guys sort of drop off, we're getting a bit more usage and more confidence in his shot. While Keontae George didn't have a huge night, he'd been better than this. 14, 1, and 0 with no other stats to go with. 3 to go along with, which is fine. But these guys are more just sort of plug and play players. I thought we'd get more out of Bryce Sensabaugh. We got the minutes, 33 of them, but 10 points and 2 threes doesn't really cut it. Now, again, it would be better. He is a 40% three-point shooter this season. He shot overall 20% in this game. So, I love the minutes. I love the fact that he started over Juzang. If you added Sensabaugh, you'd be very disappointed with that. I would try to hold it, honestly, because the ingredients are there for that to be much better. Filipowski only had 6 points on 21%, much like Sensabaugh. Rockets, limited these guys, but Filipowski, part of the appeal of him for me coming out of college was big defensive numbers. And he hasn't done it in the NBA, but he did it here. 2 steals and 2 blocks with 11 boards in 31 minutes. I think he is a must-roster player. Collins isn't coming back. Markkanen's not coming back. He'll play with Kessler or in place of Kessler. I think it's a pretty good spot for him at the moment. The other one to look at there is Kessler, who had 11 and 12 with 2 steals and 2 blocks, and not his best night, obviously, and I would hold him, but we are going to get to the stage that if he misses another game, that dropping him to get more playing time in would end up making sense. I don't think we're there yet, but we could easily get there without too much of a hassle. On the Rockets side of things, they just took the time in this one to just give Fred VanVleet a bit of a game off up against the Jazz. So it was Tari Eason that started, and Eason had 15 and 9, 2 steals, 2 blocks. It's a classic Eason game. He missed both his free throws. He went 88 from the field. He's up and down in terms of role and playing time, but if he starts, you know you're going to get something good usually. We also got an unbelievable explosion from Reed Shepherd. 15 points with 5 threes in just 9 minutes. He went crazy in the fourth quarter. The game was over, but just it was good to see. We don't do anything with it. We don't add him or anything like that, but it was good to see. Amen Thompson, not his best, mainly a blowout impact, 9, 4, and 5 with 2 blocks. Dylan Brooks had a huge game, but he's going to be suspended for the next game. He had 16 techs. He got his 16th in this game. Unless they rescind it, then he is suspended for their game on Friday. So be aware of that, which opens things up more for Eason. It opens things up more for Jabari Smith. Now, Smith had another double-double here, 15 and 14. Didn't shoot well. I'm not going to read a huge amount into what happened in this game, honestly. No Van Vliet, bad opponent, weird minutes. Jalen Green got back on track after a dud in the last one. He had, 22 points, while we actually got Cam Whitmore playing the entirety of the fourth quarter. But like I said, this game was just a gigantic ass-kicking. So it is hard to read much into that, outside of the fact that now Dylan Brooks is probably going to be suspended for that next game. The Atlanta Hawks go down to the Dallas Mavericks 118-120. We'll talk about the Hawks, who are sticking with the night watchman, Mohamed Ayuge, in the starting lineup. Now, Gay had been phased out, and then they put him back in to start next or in the game against Giannis, and he hasn't left the starting lineup. And I don't know about you, but if I see Mohamed Gay play a game and have 37% usage, something's a little bit off. Like, that's what why is this guy taking 13 shots? They didn't go in either. He ended up with 11 and 5 with a block. So you go, hey, should we add Gay? Like 11 and 5 with a block that's a really good Gay time. But he's not going to have 38 usage. Like, let's be serious. That's not going to happen. So don't do anything there. The Dyson Daniels run for most improved player continues, 17, 6, and 5. Trae Young had 25 and 11. And it was also a massive Onyeka Okongwu game up against a bunch of big men. 20 and 14 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. He has really delivered on that promise that took a long time to get there. The promise of, hey, this guy can be a good player, but more importantly, for our purposes, he's a good fantasy player. And we're seeing it now. Limited time from Vit Krejci because they're indulging in Gay time way more than we expected. Krejci had 11 points with 3 threes, but in 16 minutes, we can't do anything with that. And you'll be stunned to know that Ricochet was terrible. 9 and 3 in 25 minutes. Let's just jack him off one more time.
Get that garbage out of here.
Just impossible to rely upon him. It was a better LeVert game, but outside of streaming, I don't want anything to do with Karis LeVert in my day-to-day life. Should we go on to the other side of this, which is, of course, the Dallas Mavericks? Of course we would. Why wouldn't we do that? The Mavericks get the win. Anthony Davis was ridiculously good here. He had a locker room trip, of course he did, but he ended with 34 and 15. He hit the game winner. He had a steal. He had 5 blocks. He shot 61%. He has not looked like this at all since returning from the groin, so this is a huge, huge thing. What we also saw is that Derek Lively was able to return, and we moved straight into the starting lineup. He had 4 and 5 in 16 minutes. I wouldn't bother adding him. Dan Gafford went to the bench. He was fine. 11 and 6 with a block. If they're going to play these minutes like this, I would rather Gafford over Lively, but to me, they're a little fringy. There was no PJ Washington in this game. That is important because that meant that Najee Marshall moved back into the starting lineup and his minutes went up. Now, his production was bad outside of the 8 assists. He had 6 points. And I'm not really sure you want to hold on to Marshall outside of schedule, and there is a back-to-back coming up, which should help him. But it does appear that his value or his minutes and role is tied to PJ Washington, and that's really about it. Dinwiddie was solid once more, 14, 4, and 10, and 2. I can't believe that we keep saying that. He had 2 steals as well. We keep saying that Dinwiddie's been solid, but he has. And he should be on rosters. Well, Jaden Hardy's minutes continue to be very hard to predict, so I'm not going to. Not that I'm not going to, because I have to. That's my job. I'm just not going to suggest that we should add him and deal with a roller coaster. Hardy had 22 minutes for 13 points and 3 threes, while Kai Jones played 2 minutes. Thanks for your service, Jonesy, but you're done. While Max Christie had 11 in 25. And obviously, 25 is just not going to be enough for Max Christie to have any impact outside of very, very deep leagues. Now we get to talk about the Denver Nuggets game. Not quite as interesting as the one yesterday because they sat all their guys, all just having a bit of a snooze after playing those double overtimes. The Spurs got in on the action a little bit as well, resting some players. Understandably, they're trying to lose, but they didn't lose, they won. The Spurs get the victory, 113-106. That's the final score there. There was no Vassell, no Keldon Johnson, no Sohan, and no Charles Bassey. So Chris Paul, on a back-to-back, played 32 minutes. What is happening with this guy? 17, 5, and 8, 1 steal and 2 blocks. I honestly just can't believe that he's actually playing this much and playing back-to-backs. And has he even been hurt once this season? It's been an unbelievable season for this old man. Again, the injury-prone narratives get chucked around so often, but Chris Paul's always random stuff. Yeah, when you get lower body hamstring stuff, it's a worry, but it's like, okay, he broke his hand 4 times. Why? What the hell? He punched a chair. All right. But he's been fine. I don't really get it. The pencil. Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. 20 points with 3 threes in 31 minutes. That's great, but I don't want to add him. Paul, I probably do. We also got another showing of why Sandro Mamakhelishvili is interesting. 16 and 10 with 2 threes. It did mean there was no Bassi or no Sohan or no Johnson or no Vassell to get him there, but that could be the case. It's just something to monitor. I don't think that it's an ad. Well, Julian Champagny, again, if you added him for this game, it made sense. 14 and 4, 2 threes, a steal and a block. We had guys out. He was able to produce, but it still requires those players being out for him to do that at this level. Very interesting game from Steph Castle. A 15 and 15 game with 9 assists. And of course, bad field goals and bad free throws and no defensive stats. He continues to be someone I cannot get my full head around. No, that's not true. I still believe what I believe on him. But he has these games like, 15 rebounds is really nice. 9 assists is really nice. But how do I contextualize any of this stuff that he does? He is going to be someone that I have to dive in a lot over the offseason and preseason. And I'm sure I'm going to be way different to where people view him from a fantasy perspective heading into next season. I'm sure I will be. I thought we could have got a little bit of extra Blake Wesley here. Not really. 15 2-1's not terrible, but I would have hoped for a bit more with all those guys out. On the other team, the Denver Nuggets, the orange team, they were without a bunch of players as well. All of their starters were out. Jokic, Murray, Porter, Brown, Gordon, and then the next starter, Peyton Watson, all sidelined. But not Russell Westbrook. No. He's not even considered good enough to get a night off. Jokes. 40 minutes for Russ. 30 and 11, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 threes. Huge volume. Obviously, anything from this game is just not real. It's fake. It doesn't count. Look, the top 6 players are out. But it was good to see Russ get those numbers. Also, a triple-double for Jalen Pickett. 17, 11, and 10. He was one of the worst players in basketball last season. He started off this season a bit shaky, but he has actually worked into being a usable sort of a player. And that's a good game, but again, it doesn't mean anything. We had 18 and 6 from Hunter Tyson. We got a double-double from DeAndre Jordan. Well, Zeke Naji, 8 points in 23 minutes. This was an opportunity for him to do something, and he has looked better at times, but that stinks. Yeah, when you're getting 26 minutes or 25 minutes from Vlatko Čančar, who had 2 steals and a block, and you're getting a 7-minute Dario Saric, mid-level exception contract legend, 7-minute cameo, that's how you know this game means nothing. Trey Alexander was a player I liked coming into the draft process. He hasn't been very good at all, and he got 20 minutes here, had 7 points. Absolutely not inspiring. And I don't really think there's much more to talk about. Those guys will all be back for their next game. Maybe Porter's dealing with a personal issue, and Murray's missed both of these games with a hamstring, but they just gave this game away. They said, we need to value the health of our guys more, and we'll see what happens. I guess they thought the Spurs would want to lose, and the Spurs should have wanted to lose, but they did not. What does that mean for the Spurs in terms of tank standings? Well, that makes it interesting. That makes it a 4-game gap between them and the Raptors are then 3 games behind the Nets. So they're sort of stuck in the middle, very much unlikely to move. But what it does mean is that Portland now is only 1 game behind the Spurs. 32 wins for San Antonio, 33 for Portland. And amazingly, the team that celebrates clinching the play-in, the Chicago Bulls, are at 34. So that's where that is. So what Portland, obviously Jeremy Grant's not playing. It's April. We know he's not playing. Simons is dealing with the forearm contusion, which hasn't ruled him out, but it probably really will. Aiden's not coming back, I'm certain. Could Portland actually, despite having some success this season, jump ahead of San Antonio? They're not going to jump ahead of Portland, but they can move into that 8th slot. I don't think it'll be a costly win for San Antonio, but we'll see. We'll see how it ends up and where they end up going, because your chances, like San Antonio in the 8th seed here, have a 26% chance of a top 4 pick. If you're in the 9, it's 20. It's a big difference. It's a very big difference. The number 1 overall odds go from 6 to 4.5, which is not gigantic, but going from top 4, 26 to 20, big deal. Very big deal. We'll see. We'll see what they do. Let's go to the next game. We're talking about... What is this next game? Well, we're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder hosting the Detroit Pistons. The Thunder win at 119-103. Still no Cade Cunningham, but the thick hogsman Tobias Harris returned, and then he left. So we've got to be a little bit worried here about A, Cade's calf, and B, Harris's Achilles. That's caused him to miss all this time. And now I think you should probably just drop Tobias Harris, honestly. He's not good enough to hold through the will he won't he playing situation and games like this. I don't think there's a need to hold him there. In the time that he was out there, he had 10 and 4, which is fine in 22 minutes, but yeah, you want more certainty. Leaky Beasley was nothing. He was bad. In fact, 11 points on 27% with 3 threes. You do not need to roster Malik Beasley. He has been on rosters for way too long. He does not need to be rostered. We also got 30 minutes from Asar Thompson. He had 3 steals. He had 3 blocks. He had 13 and 8 with 3 assists in 30 minutes. He was 11 seconds off 30 minutes, but of course he almost got there because Harris left early. Of course he did. Timmy Hardaway had another big game. And what is going on with this guy? I highlighted him on the waiver wire show earlier in the start of the week. Said, hey, these numbers are fake-ish, but there's opportunities with guys out, and guys just keep being out, and he keeps playing well. I will not feel ever comfortable about recommending Tim Hardaway. It's like recommending Gary Trent. But he had 23 points with 5 threes, and there is a little bit of something there, and I'm sure now he'll have 4 points in the next game. If we hear that Cade is out and Harris is out, I wouldn't hate going to Tim. I probably would hate it, but I think the result might be there. Same with Dennis Schroder, who's not good at all, but he had 15, 4, and 7. He played 40 minutes in this game because there was no Stewart, there was no Sasser, there was no Holland. They were all suspended, and they'll all return for the next game. While Cade is out, though, Schroder remains a solid enough stream guy, while Jalen Duren had 13 and 13 with 2 blocks, and not really much more to talk about, apart from the revenge game from the Hall Pass legend himself, Lindy Waters III. He had 3 points in 18 minutes against his former team. Let's go on to the Thunder side of this. They made a change in their starting lineup. Again, they do it all the time. The Hong Kong match was Carson Wallace moved into the starting group, and as our Hartenstein went to the bench, there was also no Alex Caruso or Pig Williams or Aaron Wiggins. You were going to see guys they're not going to play a full complement of players, I don't think, in any game here moving forward. Chet was awesome. After a really, really slow run at things, he was great. He had 22-11 with 5 blocks and 2 steals. Wallace had 13, 5, and 4 with 3 steals, and I really like Cason Wallace. I think, actually, if he's going to play 30 minutes, you lock him in. He's a 12-team guy. I just can't fully commit to the numbers because Caruso, Wiggins, and Williams all had to be out to get him here. But maybe that is just what happens. And maybe we can just rely upon somebody being out, enabling Cason to push to 30. Hartenstein off the bench was not great, but 5'8", 6, 2 steals, 2 blocks. You do take that. And Lou Dort did his thing. Like one of the more consistently annoyingly, consistently bad, consistently inconsistently good players. And none of that made sense because it's what it's like trying to track what Lou Dort does. Because you look at every game that he has and you go, oh yeah. And it could be 0 points. It could be 18 points with 6 threes. It could be 7 steals. And you just go, oh yeah. I feel like that's what I do every time for him. I look at it. It's the most wildly fluctuating stuff, but it all makes sense somehow. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 4 threes, which is, again, fine. It's fine. But I don't want to trust it. I don't want to use it all the time, but I'll always consider it. The Bronco had 23 and 5. Jalen Williams on 53%. Unfortunately, he was a weird 3 of 6 from the line. After a red-hot start to the season, it has been pretty disappointing from Jalen Williams. He has fallen off quite a bit. He is outside the top 100 over the last 2 weeks. He had that injury as well. We don't definitely drop him, but it's been some frustrating moments for him through the season. In the last game, we had an absolutely explosive performance from Isaiah Joe, and he backed it up with 5 points in 22 minutes. Those sort of players, especially like Joe, they're very hard to chase. The only guy I feel interested in is Wallace. I'm not even that interested in Wiggins when he has big games. I'm interested in Wallace because he's got more of a sustainability to what he does, and I actually think he's going to turn into a really good player if he's not there already. Didn't even mention Shea, who had just a casual 33, 6 and 3, 3 steals and 2 blocks. Unshea-like, though, he shot 39% from the field, but of course he got his 11 of 12 from the free throw line, so that makes up for it a bit, I guess. Let's go to the final game of the day. The Pelicans and the Clippers. The Clippers win at 114-98. Same lineup for New Orleans, and another solid enough game from Bruce Brown. Now, the Shark played only 23 minutes, but he had 16 and 5 with 2 steals. It's hard to judge exactly how they're going to handle him. They've sat him on back-to-backs previously, but those numbers are fine. If you wanted to try it, you can. I just don't feel super excited about it. And I want to feel more excited about Karlo Makovic. 10 and 5 with 2 steals is good. But unless they're pushing him to 25 minutes, and they're not, it's hard to do it. Alfred Peyton on his second 10-day had 6, 4, and 4. That's only deeper league stuff. And then Antonio Reeves started once more and really delivered nothing. 11 points on 50% shooting. It's very hard to get interested in him outside of deep 3-point streaming. Jose Alvarado was good. 17 points, 10 assists, and a steal. We talked about him as a stream guy yesterday. In fact, his bloody head was posted on the thumbnail. We had to wait because there was a big gap for games for the Pelicans, but it happened today, and look, that's good enough, and he is a hold probably. Well, it was also a pretty solid game from Yves Missi. He only scored 6 points, but he had 12 boards, and he had 3 blocks. To me, he still remains a fringy guy. Olynyk was fine. Everyone here is just fine. Alvarado probably stands out the most, but Brown would be, but he played only 23 minutes, and Olynyk played just 25 minutes with 12, 4, and 3. They're fine games. They're nothing exciting. They're nothing amazing. It's just a lot of fineness. They lost comfortably by those 16 points. That's going to happen a lot. Would I roster Alvarado? Probably. Makovic, debatable. Olynyk, yeah, probably. Brown, maybe. But I'm not going to feel good about it. Brooks and Reeves are going to be those deeper league options for us. On the Clippers side of it, they also were able to roll in with the same starting group that they've been chucking out there. So what happened here? Was there anything interesting or anything notable? We got huge minutes again from Kawhi Leonard. 38 minutes, 28, 3 and 3, 2 steals. They are just pumping the minutes into him, getting him ready for the playoffs, I'm guessing. Zubats was great. Harden was very strong as well. Just good numbers from those guys. It was a better game from Bogdan Bogdanovic. 26 minutes, 16 points, 4 threes. Still feeling more like a 14-team league guy. They do have a back-to-back coming up, and he'll get a bump, I'm guessing, in one of those games. But outside of that, hard to get interested. And the same with Chris Dunn, who had a steal and a block. He hit 3 threes, cool. But under 20 minutes, and I'd only stream him if somebody is out. It was not a good game from Norman Powell, who'd been pretty bad in most of these games since coming back from the hamstring. Had a couple of good ones recently, but this is terrible. 11, 1 and 1. And we're always in the same problem with Powell. Is that outside of scoring, there's nothing else. And he needs to get good volume and maintain high efficiency. Unfortunately, neither of those things happened. I would probably still hold Powell, but honestly, if you get into your do-or-die scenarios, you cut. The thing is, they've got that back-to-back coming up. They're in the midst of a very busy part of the schedule, so you do hold through that, and then you can reassess after the end of that period of time. That's going to bring us through to the lines of the night to wrap the show up. The monstrous line of the night, we are going to go to Dallas. Anthony Davis had 34 with 15 rebounds and 5 blocks. Your young gun of the night and your waiver wire line of the night is the same player. Second-year point guard for Denver in a game that honestly just means nothing. It's a Jalen Pickett, 17, 11, and 10. It's good that he got it, and it's good that he's playing well, and it's good that he's a part of the rotation. But the production and the minutes here, they're irrelevant because of everybody that was out. 6 guys out for the Nuggets. So good for you, and if you streamed him in, well done. Don't count on anything like that. The dud of the night, it could have been Norman Powell, and we almost went that direction, but in the end, I am going to go with the dud of the night, heading to Malik Beasley. He had 11 points. He hit 3 threes. He did nothing else. He's been over-rostered for weeks, if not months, and you do not need to be holding on to him. What you do need to be holding on to is your mouse, so you can go hit a thumb up on the video on American Circus Day. Subscribe, leave your comments down below, get your lineups sorted, keep grinding, keep pushing it through, and if you're here just to enjoy, I guess, my head, well, I hope you have no complaints. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.